there's so many people I know who make more money than me, but I have more money than them. Why? To answer that question. Hi, this is Danielle and
Kyra,
and you're listening to Scrunchy-Fi, a show by mamas for mamas. Here we cover all the creative ways to make money, save money, and invest to reach financial freedom and live the life you want.
Hey, welcome back. We're on for another episode. We took a little bit of a gap there. Danielle was moving, so she was not able to log in amongst boxes behind her. So
yes,
but we're here.
Moving is not for the faint of heart.
No.
I have learned that, especially moving with children. Moving by yourself, I think is easy.
Yeah. The kid part. I'm sure you packed a box and then they unpacked it.
It was yeah. Not just the whole thing. Plus the fact like children can't go in U-Haul trucks. Sometimes think about that. There's multiple trips depending on how far you go. Anyways, luckily we didn't move that far. Hour and a half, which feels far, but it's in the grand scheme of things, we did not move that far.
Yeah, that's great. Well, in this episode, we want to talk about how is it that people are able to achieve financial independence, financial freedom, be on a financial independence journey without coming from some kind of rich background, some wealth, coming from any understanding of money. I mean, there's people on these journeys coming from all different aspects, and we are part of that. I mean, you and I, Danielle, we did not inherit a ton of money. We are not trust fund babies. Didn't even know what a trust fund was until I started learning about money, even though people talk about it in the movies. We didn't even start from nothing. We started from debt, which a lot of people's journey does start from that point. So let's talk about how did we get here to this point in our financial journey where we're able to have a little bit of flexibility in our life just because we started understanding money, started a financial journey.
Yeah, I think especially moving and just thinking about my life recently, like this question just came up over and over again of like, how is it that you have reached this level of our lives where we have this freedom? And I work with a lot of people from the tech industry, and it's very easy for me to see when someone makes $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. It's very easy to see how that person could be financially independent. Mm-hmm. However, you and I mean, the most we've ever made individually, and even as a family, I think would be the very low six figures. You know what I mean? Like I've never made more than like $105,000, $110,000 in my career. And I've only had maybe 3 years like that because I was on maternity leave, etc. We both had our careers interrupted twice, right? To have 2 kids each. Right. So I just think it's fascinating that somehow you and I and a lot of other people, and hopefully a lot of people listening to this show, can come from even careers that aren't super incredibly lucrative and still somehow figure out a way to find financial freedom within that. Yeah, definitely. And I kind of like when I think back to the first understanding of financial independence and me learning about it, I guess I did a few things, maybe not right, but kind of in a better, put myself on a projection of getting towards financial independence before that. And I think that had to do with just being creative and open-minded and knowing that there's other options out there. And I think that's what financial independence, first kind of opens up people's eyes to, that there is alternative ways. Like you hear and you talk to your friends and they're in debt, and that's kind of what we know as commonality. Like, okay, well, everyone must be in debt, but which,
in all different facets of what debt is, but having crippling debt, and we think that's the only option there is. And then you kind of see the other end of the spectrum. You're either, some kind of get rich quick scheme and the ultra wealthy, and you're like, where does that leave me? I either must be in debt or, figure out how to do this get rich, quick scheme. But actually there's so much in between, and that in between, and once you start understanding that there's options, it kind of like leads you down your first journey of understanding money.
So one thing that I'm curious about, especially with us and our stories, is what we did that set us apart. Because if you came to our homes, or if you came, like, saw us, you wouldn't just pick us out and be like, oh, those people are obviously saving money. Those people are obviously sacrificing a lot to achieve financial independence. I mean, for the most part, we look like we're middle class, regular people. So how is it that there's people who look exactly like us, wear the same clothes, live in similar homes, but somehow those people, and maybe even they make more money than us, right? Which wouldn't be terribly hard to do, let's be honest. How is it that those people maybe even have a negative net worth? And you and I are almost about to become millionaires.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a huge difference. And I know that you and I started this journey perhaps like 7 or 8 years ago. But if you think about it, 7 or 8 years is not a whole lot of time either to have such a stark difference between net worth of people that on the surface, we all look pretty similar. So I'm curious to know what you think is like, what do you think created that? Like, is it really all these little decisions that added up? Is it the mindset that we've had, or did we do something early on that was just like revolutionary or something? Like, why is it that this is possible?
Right. I definitely feel like we prioritized something differently. And I think, when you look at the American dream and what everybody wants, especially if you have like, oh, the house, the car, the family. I think those values we all hold the same. But I think when you look at it from priority, it's not that we said that we prioritize money over those values. We prioritize those values. Also prioritize the fact that we wanted financial independence and financial security, and try to make it all work together. Where some people think they have to trade off. I want the house and the family and this. Well, that means, I guess I have to be in debt. And we said, we want this and this. I guess like have your cake and eat it too. And we're like, how do we make that work? And I think we started asking that question, and we found answers that we pieced together into this financial picture of financial independence. And I think other people kind of just accept what is there and don't question, well, what if I did something a little differently? I think when I look out, and that's what I see, is questioning, your options and knowing that there is something out there. And I think that's probably something, if anyone's listening today and they're like, wow, you mean I could have both of it? Like just understanding and knowing, and someone telling you, yes, like you can prioritize family and values, having your house, etc., and prioritize financial independence. Like, yes, you can have both, and you can achieve, this, life dream that you're looking at. I think it's having it all in the same picture and trying to create a plan of how that looks. We didn't let all that happen to us. I think we chose what we wanted that to be.
We thought outside the box, essentially. We questioned things from the beginning. Instead of, oh, I have a family, I need 2 SUVs.
Right.
Oh, I got a raise, I should go spend it. I should treat myself, right? Or maybe our idea of even what treating ourselves was different. Yeah, we questioned the status quo. That seems to be like the common theme. I mean, we're both from very different places, perhaps different ideas about consumption and money and all sorts of things. Yet somehow we both came to the same conclusion that this should be questioned, that I perhaps don't want the type of lives that I'm seeing. I don't want that debt. I know for me personally, as many people who listen to this know, both my parents went through bankruptcy twice. And that taught me right away, okay, that it may look like we have a house, it may look like we have new cars, but this house is actually going away really soon.
Wow.
And we're going to have no house, right? So I kind of saw behind the curtain perhaps, and saw that some of this, debt ends up biting you later if you're not able to manage it, or if it grows out of control. And simply why my parents got into such incredible debt that led to bankruptcy was this idea, I think, that they wanted the new cars, that they needed to provide a certain lifestyle. And it wasn't even a lavish one, but it was beyond their means. So just even questioning of, should I live up to my means, right? Or do I want this freedom of living below my means enough to have that money, right? And then investing it and having that grow and become something I can eventually live off of. So I think both of us, for whatever reason, questioned, and perhaps that's maybe the first thing, or that's even why people are listening to our podcast in the first place. Maybe a lot of people are on here questioning, like, is this even working? Is my life working? Is my money, does what I'm doing with my money, does this make sense for me? Is there another way to do this? And I think we're both examples of very, not saying we're regular, but we're not outliers here in terms of inherited wealth or anything, or incredible amounts of education. Like, neither of us went to Harvard, as far as I know. I think you went to school in Florida, right? Okay. So there's no like, oh, like I was the top of my class and like, yeah, okay.
I
so
went to
made a
art
bunch of money.
school, so I mean, I think a lot of people will put that in a certain place in their when you say like, oh, they want all this, like when you say they want the house, they want this, are they looking at their own life and saying what they want, or are they looking at what everyone else is doing and saying, I want what they have? And I think we kind of sat back and had reflection and saying, well, what do I want for my family? What do I want, my lifestyle to be? What do I want to be able to provide, for my family? Is that financial security? Is that, private schooling? Is that homeschooling? Is that being able to, take the maternity leave or not? I think some people, again, you're kind of like, you're either looking outwards and saying, I want what they have, but not asking yourself, how does that really look in your own lifestyle? But then also some people not having a plan, just kind of like being, you're in that rapid river and going along this, in the stream. And I think when people wonder, well, okay, yeah, that sounded great, when the economy was awesome and you were able to, pay off your debt and this and that. I think that's still the same. We're all in that rapid river. And some of us, have lost our boat. Some of us are still on our boat. Even if you're in that water, like you need to direct your path. You cannot let the economy, you cannot let what other people are doing, even, whether or not your financial situation is, you cannot be the person sitting back and saying, this is happening to me. You need to get up front and center, even though it's ugly, even though you have to face your fears of being in debt, whatever that is, you need to be up front and center and say, okay, where do we want to go? Let's, we don't need, you don't need to look back. You don't need to say like, this is what I've done in the past and this is not working, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're in that rapid river and it's taking you forward, and you need to start, navigating where you want to go so that you don't hit the rock and, end up drowning.
And there's a lot of delayed gratification here, because every step, like if you're in debt, you're not going to be net worth positive perhaps anytime soon. And you need to make peace with the fact, like, this is a slow game for me, for you. It's not like we just jumped and had all this money right away. It takes a long time, and compound interest takes a long time. That's why the earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah.
So, but no matter what age you're starting, everything that you do needs to be seen in the context of that this is a long-term game, right? This is going to take a while, and you're not just going to get this immediate feedback. And perhaps even in this economy, you might see your stock, see your index funds go down for a little bit. I remember when I first invested, I think it was 2012, there was a dip in the stock market, and I was in the red. Like all of the stocks I owned were in the red, and I remember trusting the information that I had enough to be like, this is part of it. I'm not going to see gains right away. I'm in this for the long haul, and so that's okay.
Yep, I remember that 2020 too. Not 2022, but in the year of 2020, it was the blip. And, here's my, the people next to me saying they're pulling out. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to pull out. Like, I don't even need that money right now. And, what we say is that long term is that it bounces back. Is what has been shown. You look at the stock market, you zoom out. Sure, you got those blips in the middle. You zoom out, and you see that it bounces back. One thing I want to say is it's funny that when we're like in debt and when we think about money, we say that it takes a long time. But then when we talk about our children and how, they'll only be in our, in our household, within our possession, whatever, it's such a short time. And we say that from 0 to 18, right? Even if you're like, oh, they'll be that 0 to 12, it's such a short time. Well, guess what? Like if you think of your children in that time frame and that's such a short time, but then you think about money, you're like, oh, like my debt payoff plan is like 5 years. That's such a long time. Like, okay, well, if your child was from 0 to 5, like they're still a child, like they're still within your, so it's funny that we skew time based on, I don't know what that's even based on, like just different aspects of
discomfort. I assume, right? It's uncomfortable to be a debt and you want it over right away, and it's uncomfortable to be not wealthy. You want to be wealthy right away. You don't want to wait. Like what we're doing, we're winning the lottery. We're just winning it over like a 50-year span,
right.
But that's not, so that's why I'm like, okay, like we have to also see this for what it is. This is not fast, but that's the whole point, is that you and I, for whatever reason, caught on to that right away, and we haven't really deviated. And so we're like a dog with a bone, but like forever. Like we're just like constant, right? We're super consistent.
Yeah.
We trust the process, and we've already reaped so much fruits from it. It's like a tree, right? Like you plant it, it's super small. It doesn't produce any fruit for a while. And then it starts producing fruit. And then right away we harvest. Like right away we've had, both of us have had full maternity leaves. You've had even longer ones than I've had, but I've had like over a year combined of maternity leave. Some of it paid, some of it not. And I could, because I had saved money. And I just bought a home in like probably one of the worst times to buy a house, but I bought it because I needed it. And I did that because I've been saving and investing for so long that it just was fine to do.
Yeah.
And that tree will continue to grow, and I will continue to harvest. It's not like, okay, I cut down the tree and I bought a house. No, the tree is still there.
Yeah.
I just took the fruit from it.
Yeah. And, some people think like that debt payoff journey, because a lot of people are in that situation. It's like, oh, once I finally get to out of debt, I'm like, okay, now my accountant's at 0. And it's like, that's a huge win. People are in debt for the rest of their life. Like when you're at 0, like you have so many opportunities that are open to you. And then once you, start saving a little bit more, you've got your emergency fund. Well, now you're like in this safety net of, if you lose your job, you're okay. Like you start building up that fruit on the tree, and now you're like, oh, I've saved a year up. Now I can go and quit my job like I did, and take a career break and travel for a whole year because I had that, safety net of money, or do that, hey, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I have a year saved up money. Perfect. Like you start building on those opportunities, or even, now you're in another opportunity now where you can say, well, I can take a little bit of risk and go full on into a private practice. It's like, I built up that financial security to give me some, peace of mind and runway to do a new venture. So it's like like the debt payoff is like the beginning, and that alone, actually, people, like when you're paying off debt, all those habits that you're building is lifelong. It's teaching you how to save your money. If you can pay off $200,000 worth of student loan debt, which that number sounds, somebody has that, good for you. But whatever amount that you're paying off, you need to understand that you saved that much money. people, if you're paying off that $200,000, you could do it again. It hurts, it takes time, but all those habits that you did to pay it off, you go and do that. You go buy a house in cash, you go buy a rental unit so that you can go and rent it out and start doing cash flow, save up 200,000, take a couple years off, go travel in Asia for like 10 years or something, how far the money will stretch. So it's like these little milestones. And I think what we're saying is like that mindset. And maybe this is, when you talk to somebody else, we're like, yeah, but if you only knew the opportunity, if you only knew if you only knew what you could get, maybe that's what they don't know. They don't know what they can get. Maybe they don't know about all these little opportunities that come your way when you start questioning and opening up that mindset and saying, well, what if?
And it goes back to the classic book, Your Money or Your Life, right? Like that's the fruit that we're now harvesting and that we're going to continue to harvest, is that when you are able to look at your life and figure out how you want to live it and what is important to you, what you value, right? Do you value being able to go on maternity leave? Do you value being able to like buy a home so that your, children have a yard? Or do you value something else, right? Traveling, taking a career break, etc. Okay, so if you value that, then you need to organize your life in order to support that. Like this is an organizational problem for the most part. There may be people that don't make enough, in which case that's maybe an income problem. But for a lot of people, it's actually an organizational problem. And so you need to organize your life to match your values. And you need to get your mindset so that you match your values. And we're examples of that, because neither of us are sitting here making $200,000, $300,000 a year, yet both of us could probably take 5 years off right now with no financial catastrophe happening.
Right.
How many people can say that?
Right.
And how many people wish they could be in that position? So this is really a mindset shift. It's really like thinking outside the box. And that was our initial steps. And then I think that was the big thing, really, was that both of us questioned everything. And then we were just consistent. And that consistency just continued to make this tree grow. And now we're like, we have like almost a mature tree, and we're like, this is awesome. I want to help more people do this.
Yeah.
And it protects us, right? Because now we have our own production of income that's not going to go away. And it protects you in a down economy. Like a lot of people are like, oh, there's a recession, right? But not everyone is affected by a recession in the same way.
Right. Yeah.
So it's extremely important how you as an individual are situated. And it took me a long time to realize that. I thought, oh, no matter what, I'm at risk if I am in a recession.
Right.
There's always a little bit of risk, but it really, almost everything has to do with your personal position more than the overall economy, unless there's some disaster. It's really a lot has to do with you.
Yeah. And that's in that rapid, we're all, Warren Buffett's in that rapid, economy, world economy. We're all in that, turmoil of global economics. But it's really, what you prioritize, how you organize, and, putting your values first and being able to plan that out, or even just take control. And that's what, we're not all going to be affected the same way, because people take control differently. Some people don't take control, so therefore they're just being affected instead of affecting their position.
And to feel like you're affected and to not feel like you have agency in your life is really to take almost like a life happens to me victim standpoint. Which life may happen to you, and there may be very negative things that happen to you, but you still have agency. And that's what we're talking about. Like, what are the things that you can control? You can control a lot of parts of your consumption. You can align those with your values. You can budget. You can invest. You can try to increase your income. You can try to be creative in how you increase your income. You can house hack like you do, or do all sorts of different things. Like, you have to open your mind, but it's very closed if you think life is going to treat you poorly, or that you're going to be a certain way and that's it. Like, you have no other vision of any opportunities. And a lot of people live like that. And that could be because of the way they were raised. Perhaps their parents were like that. Life happens to us. Life is hard. It's hard to make money, or accumulating money is evil. A lot of people have these kind of very destructive beliefs about money that end up honestly limiting them, right? Limiting their ability to make money. I mean, I even have some of those beliefs still, and I constantly have to work with them of like, no, like that's a limiting belief. That's not accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. And, go and research online. If you're in a certain situation, other people were in that situation too. And there's probably knowledge online where you'll find, some support in whichever area of your life that you need it. And we're talking specifically for financial, but, if you've got other areas, go and research. I know some people are like, oh, well, I have to take care of childcare, daycare, that's a huge cost. Well, there's creative solutions to that. And I think it's just, I go online and I type in, how do I reduce my childcare cost? And, you just keep filtering through that information until you find something that sticks and just fill in the blank. And, a lot of people are researching like their medical issues and all sorts of stuff online. So why not research your financial situation and see what opportunities you have that are very specific to your situation? Because everyone's in a different, personal finance is personal. So the answer is going to be personal. It's going to be different.
Yeah, for some people, the answer will be to maybe increase their lifestyle expenses. Maybe a better, more, expensive lifestyle is the answer to some of their woes. And then for other people, it's going to be the exact opposite. Childcare is super expensive. They can't make ends meet with that. Perhaps they need to downsize. Perhaps they need to relocate. Perhaps they need to move in with family, because that's going to give them the financial freedom and ability to save money, take the decisions that they want to make. So it's like you have to be willing to understand your position and look at the short and long-term strategies of what's going to move you toward the life that you want. And some of them are not going to be the most comfortable, perhaps short-term, but it really, everything is so personal on what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve. What do you have going on? Do you have kids? Are you single, etc.? There's so many factors, but ultimately you still have choices no matter what. Like you can make choices about what you do with your time, with your resources. And that could really make all the difference, even small little changes, even if it allows you to invest $100 a month.
Right. Yeah. And things are temporary. You think you're in a situation, you're like, I'm never going to get out of this. It's probably temporary. Like, I mean, maybe temporary lasts a little bit longer than what you wanted to, but it's still, if you have a plan to get out of whatever financial situation, like that's still temporary because you have a plan to get out of it. So, you talk about the daycare. I mean, childcare, you only need that for a certain amount of, years.
Yeah.
Whatever that time frame is. But you have, it's temporary situations, temporary solutions. If you have to move in with your parents, consider that temporary. Like you've got the plan to move forward and with those choices. So are we different? I don't know. We're not. I mean, especially from the outside and, looking, I talk to other, family, friends, all sorts of, strangers. And I just see the fact that, if I ask them, what do you value? What do you prioritize? Maybe they don't have an answer right away, but there's the stepping stone to trying to organize your life in the way that you want it personally. And of course, it's always involved with financials.
We may not look different, right? And on many levels, we're not. We've prioritized 3 different things that we've really either hacked to make the expenses lower, or we've been creative, and that's on housing, transportation, food, travel, I guess, if you want to add like a 4th. Those are all areas where we've done non-traditional things for the most part and kept those costs relatively low, especially housing, which is of course the highest cost for everyone. Now my housing now is probably the US average at this point. It wasn't for the last 10 years. So, and that added up. And your housing is incredibly low for a family of 4. And that makes a huge difference as well. So I think that like recently, I know that your husband bought like some $100 push car thing. I just bought this like $140 plastic little house so that my kids hang out outside so they're not screaming inside when I'm doing therapy sessions. We buy random expensive stuff, overpriced whatever that like, ends up being worth $5 in like a year. We both do that. So it's not like you come in and we're both obsessing about like super small things. Like we both travel. That's obviously an extraneous expense that could be cut, right? And if needed. So I think that we've come up with a system to really focus on the big things and try to let some of the smaller things slide. At least that's kind of how I've been functioning lately. And I think that is one of the main things, is that we've figured out a way to still live this life that's like that's good for our kids, that's good for us, that like meets our needs, that focuses on the bigger picture, like like housing, transportation, food, like all these kind of bigger expenses, education, etc. And that has like just shifted us just enough over away from like the US average spending that it's made a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a small shift, the larger you shift, you get to this extreme of, you got people who are financially independent and quit their job at, 30 years old. But when you do these little bit of, that slight shift of prioritizing, reducing your expenses, or investing first, paying yourself first, like you just do a little bit of a percentage, you see how it feels, and then you do a little bit more and a little bit more to get to this, like hitting a goal, hitting your plan and your journey. But yeah, just slight percentage over time.
I think one thing that really sets us apart is, like I mentioned, there's the tech industry. I think that's mostly where financial independence, retire early was born, right? These engineers, these software engineers for the most part.
Yeah.
And I'm in all of these fire groups on Facebook, etc. I've read a lot of the books. There's not a huge deviation from that. There's not a huge deviation from, I work in the tech industry and make a lot of money, and pre-kids I fired, right? I figured it out. I, house hacked and stuff. And that's impressive. But you and I are both moms with 2 kids making relatively average salaries. And both of our husbands don't make a ton of money, right?
Right.
So I feel like we're bringing just a different narrative to the fire space. Like, hey, like you can actually not work in the tech industry at all,
right,
and make a pretty average salary, be a mom who's taken 2 maternity leaves, who still travels, who doesn't, want to live in a, rent one room somewhere for financial independence because we want our kids to like have a certain experience. Yet we're still on this track, and we're both going to be, millionaires before we're 40.
Right.
And I feel like that it's so much more accessible for other people, for women, for people that don't fit into whatever stereotype of a fire person is, especially the one where you make over like $200,000,
and don't have any kids.
Yeah. And if you do have kids, well, if you're both, you and your spouse are making $200,000 each, like, childcare, that's going to be like 5% of your salary. It's not going to be a big deal. You just have different problems, and perhaps you're like trying to be financially independent with like a $3 million house. Like, I'm sure, yes, that is a struggle, but that's not our struggle.
Yeah.
So like the majority of Americans make around, family wise, right? Family of 4 probably make around a similar amount that you and I do, right? If you look at our families. So if this is possible for us, it's just saying it's possible for other people. And how we did it was just thinking outside the box and focused on, the main expenses. We're creative with our income. You're super creative with your housing, with traveling. And that's literally made all the difference. Like, neither of us are, may never, hopefully one day, make over $200,000 a year, but so far not.
What's interesting is you said like, oh, well, maybe you're trying to be financially independent with the $3 million house. And I think that's like a question you need to ask yourself. Like, I want to be financially independent, ... And I think if we were to explain that, it would be very different from what you probably think it is. Because my financial independence doesn't have a value on a house. It has, I want to be financially independent and spend time with my family. I want to be financially independent. Maybe there's a house in there, maybe not. Maybe we go ditch the house when we travel. If there is a house, I just want to have enough space for the kids to play, like, financially independent so I can make work optional and be able to flex those hours. Like that picture has nothing to do with like a dollar sign of a product.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, or like a luxurious existence. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for freedom and time with my family. Like that's what I value. And I think Your Money or Your Life is a good book that kind of centers around that. Also written partially by a woman. And I think maybe we also, the FIRE movement is pretty dominated by men. And I think it does need more of a female mom perspective. Yeah.
Scrunchy mamas.
Woo, woo.
Woo, woo, woo. We're dancing over here. Anyone listening? If you have enjoyed the show, please share with another Scrunchy Mama and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For show notes, resources, and links to our other video shorts, check out our website, scrunchify.com.